Hi, welcome to Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. Who would have thought that in 21st century Britain there'd be such a stigma attached to being an Asian divorcee? Talking to me today is Reshma Kanabar. Thank you, Reshma, for joining us today. Now, you're a divorcee.
I am.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I come from Africa and I got divorced about 5 years ago. Since my divorce, there's been a big stigma attached within the family and kind of been an outcast within the community because of the fact that I'm divorced.
How long were you married for?
7 years.
Was it an arranged marriage?
It was.
So your parents found you your partner?
But kind of, I met through family, and we got married from that. So it wasn't, I'd only known him 3 months before I got married to him.
And what went wrong? What happened?
There was a lot of issues, not a lot that I would like to go into, but family issues. But yeah, that's all I'd like to say.
And you were married to him for 9 years?
Yeah, on and off. I was married to him, but we didn't have a relationship, as in like being in the same house for a long time. We sort of split. I was in and out of the house every 6 months.
So you were having issues from right from the beginning?
That's right.
I know you don't want to go into too much detail, but the issues with your partner, were they something that you could have resolved? I mean, through counseling or with family getting involved? Did you try that stuff before you got divorced?
Yes, we did try a few things, but it wasn't helping because there was no compromise. I don't think.
On his part?
Yeah. There wasn't a compromise within the family or with him, so it was difficult trying to do it all on my own.
So when this marriage was falling apart, when you realized that this was just not going to work out, did you and your husband sit down and decide mutually that you guys were going to get divorced?
No, it was always a case of you need to get out of the house, and it's just sort of. I think in the end, it was me who decided I didn't want to be in that house anymore and just left.
How hard was that decision for you?
It was a very difficult decision because I had a 4-month-old baby as well at the time, and it was very difficult for me. But I felt it was the best decision for me and for him, for my son.
Wow, with a 4-month-old leaving, being on your own, where did you go?
I went to my uncle's house for a week or so, and then I rented a flat out and stayed in the flat with my son, and also had to juggle a full-time job with that as well.
How is your own immediate family? How did they react to the divorce? Were they supportive?
My immediate family is in Africa, so I was all on my own here, kind of didn't have any family support or anything because of the fact that my family was far. So it was just me on my own, and I didn't know many people because after I got married, it was a difficult situation. Didn't get to know many people because I'd come from a different country. So to be honest, it was all being on my own, the whole.
So you got married, you came from Africa,
Yeah.
You got married, you were in this marriage for 9 years.
Well, when I split up from my ex-husband, I was in the marriage for 6 years, and then we stayed separated for another 3 years. So I was in the marriage for 6 years, 6 years, yeah.
Why the separation for 3 years? Why not, divorce? Yeah.
It was just a case of like, who's going to start the procedures, really, and I didn't want to do that. I mean, it was a case of, well, if we can still try and get this sorted, we can, but what I said I wanted was not, he didn't want that, and that was moving out from his family home. He did not want to do that, so I left the divorce proceedings to him as to start, and it took him longer to start the proceedings.
Do you think part of the reason that the marriage didn't work is that you came from Africa, he was here, so did you guys not have a common ground?
There was a common ground, but I think it was more so family issues and the fact that, families always wanted to interfere, which I find is a lot. There is a lot of that in the Asian society where families want to interfere. They don't leave the couple alone, and they just want to have a say in everything, which I find is the cause of a lot of Asian marriages breaking down.
So do you think that had because your family's all in Africa.
Yeah.
So basically, if your in-laws had kind of stayed out of it, do you think you and your husband could have worked it out?
Yes. I think we would have still been in a marriage, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was kind of interfering on their part that just
That's
dissolved
right.
this marriage.
Yeah.
Did you guys, was there communication going on in your marriage? Did you guys sit down and say, look, this is between me and you? Did you have that conversation?
A lot of times, but nothing came out of it because it was a case of like, well, you just don't like my family, and
Did you live with your in-laws?
I did, yes.
Oh, so that must have just added to
Yes,
it.
and I felt that even if we moved out and moved, 2 doors away, that would have helped our marriage rather than, rather than living with them under the same roof, because there was bound to be problems. It didn't start off well, so it wasn't going to go well later either. So I felt that was a very big issue there,
Yeah.
which there was no compromise on. So.
Well, I mean, a lot of people watching us, and women in particular, can relate to your experience and are probably going through a very similar thing and might be living with their in-laws or maybe not living with their in-laws,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of interfering going on. Did you find that soon after you got married, you moved over here, moved into this house with your, I guess now your extended family, your in-laws, did they start having a say in your marriage right from the beginning?
Yes.
Did you try to, you know how Asian parents tell their daughters, now you're married, this is your new mother and father. Did you try to treat your in-laws like you would your own family?
Yes, I did, but I think for me it got to a stage where a week into our marriage there was so many issues, so many problems.
A week into your marriage?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just felt that there was no, there was no talking to them, because as it is, I was completely from a different...
Were you guys the same caste?
Yes.
And yep.
But I just felt that, when I went into the family, I wasn't welcomed as I should have been, and into a week into a marriage there was always something wrong here and there. They didn't give me a chance to settle down or nothing of the sort, and I felt that was a difficult bit. And then...
What kind of problems would they have had with a new bride a week into her marriage? I mean...
Cooking issues?
Really? It started off with that?
Yeah.
Well, you just weren't a good enough cook? Was that what they
Yeah,
were
that's
saying?
it. Yeah.
Was he the only son?
He is, yeah.
Because I tend to find that when it is an only son, that mother-in-laws are a little bit possessive. Was that?
That was very much the case, yes.
Did you find that you were in a power struggle with your mother-in-law?
Yes. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law. So there was 3 women under the same roof with one, guy, and it was a difficult time for him as well, I suppose.
So you guys were married for 6 years. That's a significant amount of time to
Yes.
get to know somebody.
However, during our 6 years, we sort of probably lived together for 2 years. Because as I say, from the beginning,
if you didn't have any family here, where did you go?
I've lived in hostels. I have gone and lived with students. I have had a flat on my own. It was basically a case of living out of a suitcase all the time. As I was just asked to, right, okay, you can go wherever you want. I have aunties and uncles, but obviously they didn't want to be involved in this argument all the time. So there's times that I've experienced hostel life as well as living with students, renting a flat on my own.
Are
Sharing
there support agencies in the UK that help Asian women that are going through a separation or a divorce?
Yes, there is, yes.
Did you have a lot of help from them?
I